You are paying for a war. You just don't know how much. Off the coast of Venezuela, small boats explode. More than 100 people are dead. The US military is present, heavily, quietly. Inside Congress, a different explosion is unfolding. Lawmakers ask a simple question: how much is this costing? The answer, they say, never comes. Top Democrats estimate the bill is already near $1 billion, about $800 million in Caribbean operations, another $500 million to pursue Nicolas Maduro. The Pentagon responds with denial. It costs nothing, they suggest. But nothing in war is free. Not ships, not missiles, not silence. This is not just a budget dispute. It is a test of accountability, of law, of who controls American power. If you care about where your money goes and who decides, stay with me. Because to understand this conflict, we have to step back and ask how the system itself stopped answering. So let's slow this down. Strip away the slogans. Ignore the talking points. At the center of this story is a basic constitutional question. Who controls military power in the United States? Congress is supposed to hold the purse. That is not symbolic. It is law. When troops deploy, when ships move, when weapons are fired, Congress has the right to know the cost. Not eventually, not selectively, now. Yet Representative Adam Smith and Senator Jack Reed say that right is being denied. Repeated requests, repeated briefings asked for, no clear numbers delivered. Democrats estimate. They are forced to estimate because the Pentagon will not confirm. The Defense Department says this is false, says data has been shared, behind closed doors, in fragments. What matters is not who is right rhetorically. What matters is the system breaking down. When cost becomes opaque, oversight weakens. And when oversight weakens, power drifts. Next, we need to understand where this operation came from and why it escalated so quietly. To understand that, we have to go back. Not to a single decision, but to a pattern. The United States did not wake up one morning and choose the Caribbean. This buildup began in August, quietly, incrementally. Officially, it was about pressure. Pressure on the allies now running Venezuela. Pressure through presence, ships, surveillance, strikes on small boats. This is how modern power often works. Not invasion, not declaration, but sustained pressure just below the threshold of war. The mechanism is familiar. Use military assets already funded, already deployed. Shift them, reassign them. On paper, it looks like nothing new. No new war authorization, no new budget vote. But in reality, costs accumulate. Fuel, maintenance, personnel, risk. And because this unfolds in pieces, accountability dissolves in pieces too. That is the structural vulnerability, and soon that vulnerability produced its first visible rupture. Then it broke the surface. Small boats, fast, light, deadly when misread. In the Caribbean, US forces struck, again and again. More than 100 people were killed. That number matters because it transformed an abstract deployment into a human event. This was no longer about positioning ships on a map. It was about bodies, about force, about consequences. And suddenly, Congress was no longer asking a technical question. They were asking a moral one. What are we doing? And under whose authority? This is where the first mini-crisis emerges, not from the battlefield, but from the silence that followed. Lawmakers demanded costs, not strategy memos, not assurances, numbers. The response, they say, was dismissal, as if war could occur without expense. Here is the quiet danger. When violence happens without transparency, democracy becomes an afterthought. If this concerns you, if you believe force should never operate in the dark, pay attention. because what followed was not de-escalation, it was deeper concealment. And next, we need to look at the system that allows that to happen. Here is the core mechanism, and it is not unique to this administration. Modern military power hides in plain sight. Operations are sliced into categories: reassignments, exercises, presence missions. Each one looks small, manageable, already funded. Together, they become a war without a name. This is how cost disappears, not by lying outright, but by dispersing responsibility. Ships are already deployed, personnel are already assigned, munitions are existing inventory. So when Congress asks for a number, there is no single ledger, only fragments. That fragmentation is the shield, and it creates a second distortion. If costs are invisible, risk feels cheaper. Decisions accelerate. Escalation feels frictionless. This is why Representative Adam Smith keeps pressing, why Senator Jack Reed invokes the law. Because once the system normalizes opacity, oversight becomes ceremonial. And when oversight becomes ceremonial, power concentrates. This is not about left versus right. It is about whether democratic control can survive modern warfare. And then came the next escalation, sharper, riskier. The second crisis didn't begin with gunfire. It began with a promise. Donald Trump said the pressure would stay. For a reason, for leverage. Keep U.S. forces near Venezuela. Squeeze the leadership. Force compliance. And then came the justification. Oil. Trump argued that Venezuela's oil would pay for everything, that America would not foot the bill, that the operation would finance itself. On paper, it sounded simple, almost elegant. In reality, it was fantasy. Oil experts were blunt. Venezuela's infrastructure is broken, decayed, neglected for years. They said it would take $60 billion and several years before real revenue could flow. Executives told this directly to the White House, including Exxon. When Exxon's CEO called Venezuela uninvestable, the market reacted. Stocks dipped. And the president reacted too, with threats. Here, the second crisis crystallizes. Policy driven by assumption, enforced by force. When economic reality collides with military ambition, someone always pays the difference. And that someone is rarely the one making the promises. Next, we need to talk about you, about what this means for ordinary people. Now this reaches you, not as a headline, as a consequence. Because when costs are hidden, they don't disappear, they move. They move into budgets you fund, into readiness gaps, into deferred care for soldiers, and into moral distance. You are told this operation costs nothing, but you know that cannot be true. Every ship at sea means a ship not elsewhere. Every hour flown is wear. Every strike carries risk. And then there is the human cost. More than 100 people are already dead. Names you will never hear. Faces you will never see. When war happens quietly, you are denied the chance to consent. That is the emotional fracture. This is why transparency matters. Not for accountants, for citizens. If you believe your voice should matter before force is used in your name, share this. Talk about it. Because silence is how systems drift, and drift is how democracies weaken. Next, we have to widen the lens, because this is not just about Venezuela. Let's zoom out. This is bigger than one nation. It is bigger than one operation. What happens in Venezuela will echo. In the Caribbean, yes, but also in every other nation watching. If military power operates beyond transparency, what happens when the target is not Venezuela? What happens when it's your country? The US military is now a global force. Its reach is vast. Its influence stretches far beyond Venezuela's shores. This is the power dynamic at play. And China is watching, Russia is watching, and so is Europe. How the US conducts its operations shapes the global landscape. Each unaccountable step strengthens the hand of those who prefer to act in secrecy. Each covert escalation becomes a global precedent. This is why geopolitics matters here, not as theory, as practice. What we allow at home, others will model abroad. If this concerns you, the implications of unchecked power are far-reaching, and this is the reality that will shape the future. Now let's imagine 3 paths ahead. The first scenario is optimistic. The Pentagon opens up, Congress holds the line, the system reforms. Democracy reasserts itself. Every action from every ship is questioned. Every decision from every deployment is transparent. In this scenario, military action is carefully weighed. There is no such thing as a secret war. You, the public, have a clear understanding of where and how your tax dollars are spent. And the global stage becomes safer, because other nations see the accountability and they follow suit. That's the dream. The second scenario is middle ground. The Pentagon maintains its opacity. There is still oversight, but it's fragmented. It's a system where decisions get made quietly, with some checks, but far less than needed. In this world, America remains powerful, but it drifts further from its ideals. The global order becomes more uncertain. Nations begin to question if they too can act with impunity. The space for unchecked power grows. And finally, the worst case. A system where oversight is all but gone. The military moves without question. Budget, operations, deployments, all concealed. In this world, war becomes a shadow, a force that is invisible but ever present. And the democracy you think you're protecting is eroded from the inside out. That's the danger. Here we are. The future is in your hands. Because right now, democracy is being tested. The way we govern, the way we spend, the way we use power. The system you rely on is fragile. It needs oversight, it needs transparency, and it needs your voice. If you believe in a government that answers to the people, not just the powerful, now is the time to act. Demand clarity, demand accountability. The next time someone tells you a war costs nothing, ask them to prove it, because the price always comes due. It's up to you whether it's paid with your silence or your voice. Let's keep pushing for a system that works for all of us. And never forget, the true cost of power is the trust you place in it.